Barbie, Barbie, Chloe. Period I, period 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 period. Got my name up in your mouth, you don't know no better. Don't forget I'm from the south, yeah, I got them headers. You watching everything I do, studying all of my moves. Wish you could do what I do. Period I, period period I, period period I, period period I, period period.
Hello, litigators and opinionators. Court is now in session. Man, oh man, there's been a lot of stories that have been unfolding, a lot of follow-ups and updates, and this one definitely need to talk about. You see a lot of people talk about what happened to Takeoff, but a lot of people don't realize that there were two other victims that suffered very traumatic, horrific, not only physical injuries, but emotional. It took an emotional toll. And one of those victims was a young lady that was caught in the crossfire here. And I'll show you a picture of this sweet young lady on the screen. Sydney Leday. And she's the young lady to the left of the screen. And her mother is here pictured to the right. And it took a long time for her to be able to come and speak out about what happened to her. She was one of the victims shot in the back of her head, and a lot of the news outlets have been trying to get a hold of her to get an interview going, and she finally has spoke, guys. So I wanted us to go over her interview. It was a very emotional, sad interview. Not only was she interviewed, but her mother was interviewed. But before we get to the interviews themselves, let's read an article about the particular interview that occurred. So in this particular article, it first starts off by a very gut-wrenching statement from her. And she said that when she was shot in the back of the head, she felt the sting in the back of her head, guys. My gosh, so sad, so emotional for a young lady. And one thing you have to understand is Sydney is 24 years old. On this night, she was coming to this event to celebrate her birthday. She was there for her own birthday celebration. And she had arrived pretty late, like around 12 or 1 a.m. So right when things were ending, even though it was celebrities there, it wasn't really a big deal to her because she's from Hollywood. She's from, California, Hollywood, and she's used to being around celebrities. So it wasn't really a big deal for her until things started to get a little crazy. So let's read this. So caught in the fire. I felt the sting in the back of the head. Innocent bystander shot with stray bullet in Houston shooting that unalived Takeoff recalls. Chaos. 24-year-old Sydney Leday is lucky to be alive. After she was shot in Houston, Texas on November, Leday was hit in the crossfire of the shooting that took the life of beloved recording artist Takeoff. Leday, who was shot in the head and spent a week in the hospital, sat down with reporter Grace White from KOU 11 News on January 18th to tell her story. And it was very hard, like I said, to get her to do this interview. It took several months for her to even want to talk about it. Leday is from Houston, but she had been living in Los Angeles, California. So she'd been in the glamorous Hollywood, life. She was just back in Houston to celebrate her 24th birthday 2 days before the shooting. She was also celebrating Halloween with a friend and said she was dressed up as a nun for the occasion. And when she was talking about the description of what she was wearing, she had already had fake blood on her. So it was kind of ironic when this tragedy happened because now it's really a true injury. And here is photos of her in the hospital, guys. Pretty sad here to the left. And also, this is a more recent photo of her to the right when she did her interview. So it's a miracle that she's still alive and she has all of her faculties and her ability to even talk. To be shot in the head, man, this is a miracle. It's a miracle that she's alive, guys. A miracle. And Sydney Leday describes being shot at the scene of the killing of rapper Takeoff. I never dressed up for Halloween, she said, and that was something I was excited about. Oh, goodness. What is this? Oh, y'all remember this one. We don't want to talk about that right now. Leday said she showed up at 810 Billards and Bowling Alley for a private party at around midnight. The woman said she had a few drinks and the evening seemed normal until people started arguing while playing dice around 2:30 a.m. Leday said it seemed as though the argument began to get heated, although at first it seemed like a friendly banter between the players. She said Quavo became upset and said he wanted to leave. That's when I knew something was wrong, she remembered. Leday began to run away when the argument escalated and described the moment she felt the bullet hit her in the back of the head, y'all. I felt the sting in the back of the head, she recalled. I felt myself falling and the person I was with picked me up and we got into the car. But it was like a scary movie, really. Ironically, it was Halloween night. I had on a nun outfit. I had blood all over me. Leday's friend helped her down the escalator and rushed her to the Memorial Hermann Hospital. And to imagine being shot in the head and you're having to walk down an escalator, man, this young lady was a walking miracle. Who does that? Walking around with a head injury. And the hospital was about 12 minutes away. She described calling her mother from the car and before having a seizure, y'all. Wow. The bravery of this young lady. Shot in the head, walks down an escalator, then gets on the phone and can be able to rationally talk to her mom. Wow. I'm actually absolutely tongue-tied because that is incredible. I was up the whole time, and after I got shot in the head and I called my mom and told her what happened and to come, she recalled, I told her to come to the hospital, but I ended up having a seizure, so I was on the phone with her the whole time. Leday spent time in a coma and woke up to find her family all around her at the home from the hospital. She began to have panic attacks. She also had no appetite because of her head injury, which made her nauseous and frequently vomit. I feel like that part was even worse than the actual being shot in the head because I'm actually feeling all those feelings. Leday said she couldn't write her name while in the hospital, had some memory problems while she was still hospitalized. She also didn't know TAKEOFF had died, guys, until she was discharged. So she didn't even know all the details because her mother speaks about in the interview how she kind of kept a lot of the newspapers and articles and everything and the social media away from her daughter because she didn't want her daughter to be further traumatized. And Leday described how she felt learning that she wasn't the only person shot. She said, I was sad that it ended up like that. But I mean, we are all in the same situation, unfortunately, she said. Somebody else didn't survive. And I was grateful that I did because the place that it hit in my head, I just feel like it was a miracle. Wow, guys, this girl is a walking miracle. She should not even be here to be shot in the head, walking and talking on the phone, y'all. That's incredible. God must really have his hand on this young lady. Leday is still covering from the shooting, and she has a GoFundMe set up to help her pay for her medical expenses because she does not have health insurance. And she was in the hospital for about a week. So you know that bill is going to be extremely expensive, not even to mention the surgery and the other subsequent medical treatment she's receiving. Her mother said Leday was left with physical and mental disabling damages requiring treatment. Wow, this is so sad. Every day is different, said Leday. I'm going through different emotions, she said, while noting that she is happy on most days, but also has mixed emotions. I have random times where I feel angry, a lot. I wouldn't say sadness. I have feelings of being grateful that I'm still here. 33-year-old Patrick Xavier, we already know, was arrested with about the shooting in December, and another man, Cameron Joshua, was charged in November with illegally having a gun at the party. It's unclear who even shot her. And the thing is, what frustrates me too, guys, is that the prosecutor hasn't even filed charges for what happened to her. I mean, I understand that they're filing charges for what happened to TAKEOFF, but there were other two victims involved, and so they should have justice just as much as TAKEOFF should. So let's hear from her in this interview, and then we'll hear from her mother also.
White. Many people don't realize the night rapper TAKEOFF was shot and killed in Houston. There were other people injured. One of them is 24-year-old Sydney Leday. She was shot in the head in the early morning hours of November 1st, spent a week in the hospital, and says it's a miracle she survived. Leday is born and raised in Houston and says she's been leaning on her family for support. It's a story we've been working on for months and waiting until she was ready to tell her story. In her first interview, she talks with us about what it was like being there that night and the wounds she's still recovering from, physically and emotionally. Sydney, first, tell us how you're doing.
Every day is different. I'm going through different emotions. I haven't saw a therapist or anything, so most days I'm happy. Most days, I could just, to sum it up, it's a mix of emotions. So I have random times where I feel angry. A lot of, I wouldn't say sadness. It's, I have feelings of being grateful that I am still here.
You've made a miraculous recovery. Tell us what you've been through.
I really just can say I'm just grateful to be here, and it's just like sometimes unreal.
Do you remember the moment you first woke up in the hospital?
Everybody was around me. Well, when I first woke up, like I said, I didn't want to be there. I kept telling my mom I want to go home. I had never been in a hospital like that, but I remembered what happened, because when I was up the whole time after I got shot in the head, and I called my mom and told her what happened and to come.
You called your mom after you were shot?
Yeah. And I told her to come to the hospital, but I ended up having a seizure. So I was on the phone with her the whole time. And
so you knew exactly what had happened and why you were in the hospital.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but everybody was around me. My mom, my aunts, my grandma.
I know you said you knew why you were in the hospital, but did you understand the extent of your injuries and what you had survived?
Yes, I did. I was up for the whole thing. I felt the sting in the back of my head. I felt myself falling, and the person I was with picked me up, and we got in the car, but it was.
I don't know about any of you guys, but it is so hard watching this, just to see this young lady still seems so traumatized by this. And that's the sad part about it. Like, a lot of us have been talking about TAKEOFF, but nobody realizes the trauma that the other two victims are talking about. But just seeing her speak, you can see just how shaken up she is, still traumatized. And also to know that she had to go by an alias in the hospital because she was still terrified that the shooter was going to try to find her and unalive her or harm her. So there's that trauma. And also the sad part about this is she still hasn't got therapy, guys. Man, I really pray for this young lady. But let's keep going.
It's like a scary movie, really. Ironically, it was Halloween night. I had on a nun outfit. I had blood all over me. And
you had dressed up for Halloween.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it was still my birthday weekend. So
you had just turned 24.
Yeah. So, like any other 24-year-old, I was just out partying and celebrating because I really never dressed up for Halloween, and that was something I was excited about.
Did you know the people there that night? Did you know TAKEOFF was there?
Yeah, I saw everybody. I'm used to being around celebrities, so it wasn't because I used to live in Los Angeles, so it wasn't like a big deal. It was just more so like just a regular party.
And had you been there the whole night, or what time did you get to the bowling alley?
It was after hours, so I got there around maybe 12 or maybe 1 o'clock because we had been to a few places. Like I said, we were celebrating my birthday still, and it was Halloween. And I told the person I was with I wanted to, hang out tonight because I have my costume. I looked cute. So, yeah, so we got there at like 12 a.m. and everybody was just hanging out. We had a few drinks.
At any point, do you remember being scared before all that happened, or was it, in your opinion, a normal night?
Yeah, it was pretty normal in my opinion. Yeah, I didn't get scared. It wasn't any arguments or anything until the event was actually over. And yeah, that's when I knew something was wrong after the fact, because I thought these people that were arguing was just playing from, like I said, the energy that was in the room before. Everybody was around the table playing a game of dice. So I thought it was just like, some friendly banter.
But that argument or that arguing was kind of your first sign that something was going on.
Yeah, because Quavo, he was upset. So I noticed that something was wrong whenever I noticed that he was really upset and he was finna leave. So the party wasn't finna keep going on.
Oh my gosh, guys, I feel so bad for this young lady because not only does she have to relive this trauma during the interview, but she's going to have to testify at the trial. So this young lady's going to have to relive this trauma repeatedly throughout this ordeal. And what's to say that she's probably not going to have to testify if they have a preliminary hearing? It just depends on if the investigative officer, has the credentials to be able to testify, utilizing the layers of hearsay for the preliminary hearing. But if not, she's going to have to go to various hearings and testify, and this is going to be really traumatic. I feel so much empathy for her, but let's continue.
And I saw whenever everything broke out and I tried to run, but I didn't go that far. So yeah, it was really like a movie, like shooting all the way until I got down the escalator into the car, and I'm just telling the person I'm with, like, I'm scared, and I knew something happened to me from falling and feeling that stinging sensation.
Mm-hmm. So you were actually running away when you were shot. Is that fair to say?
Yes. Yeah. So that's when I got in the car and called my mom, and luckily we were only 12 minutes away from Memorial Hermann.
Wow. So you made it down the escalator into the friend's car. That friend took you to the hospital, rushed you there. And you said you spent how long in the hospital total?
A week.
What was it like when you went home?
That's when the real stuff started.
I'm still blown away, guys, that this young lady got shot in the back of the head and was able to walk down the escalator, get into the car, and still have all her faculties and be conscious enough to call her mom. That's a lot. Wow. I'm looking at her as supernatural. I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, God must have really, angels were encamped around this girl, because it's just like, would you ever imagine that much? I'm so shocked, speechless. But it's just sad knowing that not only was she in the hospital for a week, but that was just the beginning of her recovery. So sad. And not even just her physical recovery, but she has many years now, I think, of mental trauma because of this.
I had a panic attack as soon as I got home.
Do you replay that night in your head and what happened?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had a panic attack. And I just remember I didn't really have an appetite. All I really
ate was like fruit and just different stuff. I was nauseated throwing up all the time. Like, yeah, that was just, I feel like that part was even worse than the actual being shot in the head, because I'm actually feeling all those feelings.
Have you read?
Wow, so let's go over the list of just symptoms she's gone through after this. When she got out of the hospital, she had a panic attack. Man, that is already showing the beginning indicators of her having post-traumatic stress disorder. Imagine now when she's probably not even, her life is forever altered. She's probably not going to want to go to parties anymore, be around areas. That is so sad. Her appetite was gone, and she constantly had to feel nauseated. So this is just a toll on this young lady. I mean, yes, she had a miraculous survival, but this is just the beginning. And just to realize this young lady was having a panic attack, and just, it's like, it's an ongoing trauma for her. So sad, so sad.
A lot of the articles that have been published about that night.
Yeah. I'm a pretty curious person, so yeah, I wanted to know, because I was having memory problems and I couldn't really write like my name and stuff like that, even to get discharged or, sign certain things in the hospital. So I was having certain problems at first.
Did you realize other people were shot as well?
No. I mean, of course, being in it, you're trying to get away from it. You're not, I don't mean to sound heartless, but you're not worried about other people. I was worried about one of my other friends, because I know she was right there by me, and I was worried about her because they told me she was at the hospital. So I actually saw her or something like that. See, that's what I'm saying. Like, I had to keep asking, like, to like refresh me on certain things. But yeah, she ended up being okay.
That you didn't realize Takeoff was killed until
After
you
the
got
fact.
home. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What was that like to realize that other people were shot that night?
I mean, I actually was going through it. I was sad that it ended up like that, but I mean, we were all in the same situation. Unfortunately, somebody else didn't survive, and I was just grateful that I did, because the place that it hit in my head, I just feel like it was a miracle.
I'm Grace White. Many people.
Wow, guys, that was a lot, man. So sad. Man, not only did she have the panic attacks, no appetite, nausea, but she also talks about having memory problems and her inability to write. So she sustained a lot of really traumatic aftermath of this trauma, but you can also just see the emotional toll it's taken on her. Even a couple months later, she still looks very shaken up, very terrified. It was very difficult to watch this video, guys. I mean, I tell you, it was a whole lot. And then to hear the mom speak, y'all, we got to hear from the mother, y'all. The mother, man, hers was even traumatic too, hearing her mom talk about getting that call, and just how caring her mom was. Her mom was talking about how every time her daughter goes out, she always is walking and pacing around the house because she's always worried about her. Man, that must be a horrific way to live, because, as a parent, to always be afraid you're going to get that call. And this very night, when she's afraid and worried about her daughter, she gets that call, the call that every parent dreads. And it was also very difficult to watch the mother, because of just seeing, wow, the trauma it put on the mother to know her little girl had been shot in the head. It's just, oh my gosh. And I know people say, why you say little girl? She's 24 years old. Because that's how sometimes parents view their kids. Even if their kids are grown, they still see them as their baby girl or their baby boy. That's just how a lot of parents view their children, as they're always going to be their baby in their eyes. That child that they helped raise from birth, teaching them the very beginning stages of life, how to walk, how to eat, all that stuff, how to write their name. And to think now she has to return back to those stages, because during this trauma, this young lady couldn't even write her name. So it's like trying to go back into back to those days when Sydney was a child and to recall those in Sydney's adult years because of what happened to her. So this is sad, but let's hear from the mama, y'all. Woo, the mama interview was very hard to listen to as well. So brace yourself. Brace yourself.
Watch your daughter go through this?
Oh, as a mom, it's from the beginning, it's been like she said, it's unreal. It's like Halloween weekend just haven't stopped. You know, as a mom, you want to make sure your child is okay, of course. So moms, we know how to hold things in and keep pushing and make sure everything's okay. And we kind of will set ourselves to the side, you know, just to make sure our children are good. But it's been a nightmare, you know. As a mom, you're watching your child sick, like she said, coming home from the hospital. Well, from the initial phone call, I felt like my whole inside was on the floor. You know, my husband had to pick me up. We had to keep pushing to even get to her, you know, and just to hear the words from your child, Mom, I've been shot in my head. You know, like you're like, what? Like what are you saying? And then she's telling me that. So
And where were
Gosh, guys, I can't imagine what her mom was thinking when her daughter calls her on the phone and says, Mom, I've been shot in the head. I know she's probably thinking, first and foremost, how are you even talking to me and you're shot in the head? Number two, what in the world? Like my very fear, the very call that I would never want to get as a parent, it has come upon me. That's kind of like, I bet that's what her mom was thinking, just like the most horrific call that any parent could ever get. But I just can't imagine a mom hearing that. Like her heart probably dropped when she heard her daughter call her and say, I've been shot in the head. Like imagine like, how are you? I mean, as a parent would be like, how are you even talking to me? You're shot in the head. Like that would be the first thing. I'm like, oh my gosh, like complete shock, number one. And then just thinking the miracle of your daughter talking to you after the fact that she was shot in the head. And it must have been so terrifying for this mother. My gosh, guys. Oh my gosh.
were you when you got that phone call?
what the funny thing, whenever she's not home and she goes out, I'm constantly up. I'm walking around. And that particular night I just sat down on the side of the bed. And when the phone rang, I just knew it was something. So, you know, I had to call my mom, call my sisters, tell my husband, you know, not that she's been shot in the head, but we got to go now. So it's hard.
So you went straight to the hospital. What happened when you got there?
We stood outside in the cold and rain under the carport with the police because we couldn't go in for like 7 hours.
That must have been torture.
It was, you know, to hear her say that and then you don't know.
Did they tell you, or I guess she told you, you knew that she had been shot?
My gosh, I would not want to be this mom. She stood out in the cold and in the rain, just waiting for an answer after she heard the traumatic news that her daughter was shot in the head. Oh, can you imagine the fear she was thinking as she's sitting outside in the rain, in the cold, talking to the officers, and her only thought on her mind is not really talking to the officers, but trying to get into that hospital to find out what the heck happened to her little girl, and all these the traumatic thought of her being shot in the head. Like I can't. This mom has so much strength. Too much respect for this lady.
Mm-hmm. But it's to know, like, is she okay? Like, 7 hours is a long time. And the police were trying to be as helpful as they could, but they didn't know, her situation because they were out there with me, and they had to secure the hospital so that if it was a threat to her, not knowing who the shooters were, not knowing if they were followed to the hospital.
They were worried about her safety, even in the hospital.
Yes, she was under an alias. And I suggested that they keep it that way because we didn't know anything.
Wow. The most grueling words that she said was, 7 hours is a long time. Imagine this mom having to wait 7 hours after being alerted that her daughter was shot in the back of the head. Have to wait 7 hours to figure out and find out some answer, some notification as to whether her daughter is okay. And then the additional fear of not knowing if that perpetrator is going to try to find her and cause more harm to her. So they have to keep her daughter under an alias. And I still don't feel the fear has gone away. I mean, even though she's released from the hospital, probably still that fear of, are they looking for me? It's always going to be that fear of just one looking over her shoulder, wondering, because she does have to be a witness in this case. She's one of the witnesses. And so that makes her a target. So I'm pretty sure she's still experiencing a lot of terror and fear, including her mother. So this is just so sad.
Looking at social media with this guy, the way they were showing him, and then knowing that she's in the hospital, like, that was torture by itself.
So 7 hours later, you get to your daughter.
Mm-hmm.
What did you see?
Basically, the picture that I posted on her GoFundMe is what I saw. She had a tube. To me, she looked like she was dead. Me being a mom.
Oh my gosh. The way she described her daughter, to me, she looked like she was dead. Wow. That's gut-wrenching. Those are gut-wrenching words. To come in the hospital after waiting 7 long, grueling hours and to look at your daughter and think she looks like she's dead. Oh man, no parent ever wants to feel that type of trauma. Wow, the words that she's saying is so gut-wrenching. It's just like, wow, to be a mother and see her daughter and just think that she's dead. Oh, I can't, guys. This is a very gut-wrenching interview.
Just something I'll never forget.
How long was it before she woke up that first time?
Hey, do you ever walk into a room and completely forget?
Probably the next day, I think. She woke up and, like she said, she wanted to leave. So they had to keep her sedated. And just seeing her, her hands are in mittens, the tube, just the whole look of everything. And
yeah, even my friends are, when they see the picture, they just, I'm like, you need a warning sign.
yeah, but my family, I didn't share a lot of things with my family because it was so much going on. And once I did post the GoFundMe, it was like everything started over.
People
had
wanted
to
to know how she
explain
was doing. What
Yes.
happened?
First, a lot of calls, and yeah, it did. Like, it was coming back all over again, which we knew was gonna happen, but it's just like you having those emotions all over again.
There's no planning for any of it. There's no planning with her having nightmares. She was constantly nauseated. She couldn't eat. The anxiety, the constant emotions, just out of nowhere, she's crying. We're just trying to take care of her. And so we had to deal with all of that. And we're still dealing with it. For a while, she was afraid. She didn't know, she just didn't know. Even as a
It's so sad to hear her mother talk about how her daughter has to relive the trauma when they talk about the GoFundMe and everything, because everyone wants to know and everyone's asking questions. And the sad part is they're going to have a long road of having to relive this, because like I said, through these different judicial proceedings and the hearings and so forth, this young lady is going to have to constantly testify about this, and also a grueling trial. So I cannot express how much empathy I feel for her, because of the fact that she's going to have to relive this repeatedly throughout the legal proceedings as well. So the GoFundMe experience of having to keep retelling her tragedy is just the beginning. So sad, guys. So sad.
the mother, I'm sheltering her from the TV. I'm sheltering her. I'm keeping her phone so she's not on social media. She's not seeing the pictures from that night. She's not reading all these comments. It's just a lot. I'm covering up for my 7-year-old. She wants to know, where's Sissy? So I'm telling her, she knew she was in the hospital, but I'm telling her, oh, Sissy has a headache, but she'll be fine. She knew something was going on, but she's only 7.
What do you want to say to people who are following the case, heard about Sydney's story, who have wanted to help in some way, wanted to know how she's doing?
I just want to say it's a long road to recovery. It's a day-to-day process. It's not easy. We're so appreciative for all the love and support from strangers. You just never know. You never know where help can come from. You never know that strangers, people hear all this bad stuff every day, but it is a good side. People that they don't know her, but I'm sorry.
Don't apologize.
Just people don't know her, and they don't know us as a family, but to see the support and the love from people. Sometimes I have to look and think. It's a lot that I haven't even saw from my own family. People that know her, but to see people give that don't know her, that means so much. And I can't say thank you enough. Like she said, we're grateful.
Wow. This is so sad, man. So sad to see all this trauma that unfolded. Not only is the young lady, Sydney, going through emotional trauma, but you could just see it's evident that her mother is also going through the emotional trauma. So it's like this whole family is broken and they're all going to need therapy, not even just Sydney. So, oh my gosh, guys, it is so sad. They do have a GoFundMe. So definitely, if you guys can donate to the GoFundMe, it would be a blessing. Truly a blessing. Tiffany says, where's her father? Shouldn't he be there to support? That's a good question, Tiffany. I have no clue. I know they talked about her having a husband, but I don't know if that husband, not Sydney, but Sydney's mother has a husband because she was telling her husband to go with her to the hospital. But I don't know if that is her biological father. So they didn't really mention much about that. Elaine says, when they made the first report, they stated more than one person was shot. When the girl Ashley spoke on Facebook, she also said the same thing after they didn't hear anyone or hear it anymore. Okay, thanks. Lakeisha clarified. Hi, Lakeisha. Happy Friday, love. Lakeisha clarified. She said mom could be remarried. She could want to remain. The dad could want to remain anonymous. Right, because it looks like the mom remarried. She talks about notifying her husband. I don't think that husband is her biological dad, y'all. I don't think. Hi, Delana. Delana says, so heartbreaking she went through this. I know. It's the other victims that are involved. A lot of times when we have celebrities involved in trauma, they forget the individuals who aren't the celebrities. And this is just gut-wrenching. And we haven't even heard from the third victim because there was a third person that was shot. And I believe he was also shot in the head. So, man, it's going to be hard. I don't know if he's going to come out and speak. He may just choose to remain anonymous. Dinah says, this was so sad to watch. My heart goes out to her. I know, isn't it? It's just like you can feel it in your heart. Your heartstrings just pull because you can feel the pain. Hi, Delana. Hi, love. Happy Friday. Yes, prayers. Please keep them in your prayers. Also, if you can give into the GoFundMe, that would be nice too. I know we have so many GoFundMes because we talk a lot about tragedies on this channel. So if you can't give, just share the story, share the video, share, that hopefully someone else can donate to this beautiful family on her long road to recovery. I can't express how much sadness I feel for this young lady because, like I said, she's going to have to keep repeatedly talking about this tragedy, not only, to the friends that are asking about it, but throughout the whole legal proceedings. So it's going to be a long road of having to keep relive those horrific thoughts and also having to look over your shoulders, not knowing because she is a key witness in this, not knowing if she's a target or who could try to harm her. I don't know, guys. Just keep her in your prayers. This is such a very sad tragedy. Guys, do you think Patrick is the guy who did it after all the information is coming out, or do you think there's more people involved? I'm curious of what you guys think about that part of the tragedy also. But may this young lady, continue to thrive, continue to survive. It is a literal miracle, guys, that she is still alive. And I'm still taken aback by the fact that she was able to walk down an escalator, guys, down some stairs, then get into a car and then call her mother. Wow. Either her adrenaline must have been really rushing that moment, or it's just she's a walking miracle, a woman of true strength and tenacity, I'd have to say. All right, guys, have a wonderful night. Take care. Also, please remember to be kind in the chat kind in the comments, and please do not name any other YouTubers in the comments or I won't be able to share your comment, and I really want to share it. All right, take care, guys. Be blessed.